William here went to Mass as well, but it said as soon as I was old enough to talk, I told Mom and Dad, I do not believe this stuff. I'm never going back again. And so he threw himself into secular upbringing and secular life. And as he was a very brilliant young man, he found himself running in those intellectual circles that all assumed that atheism was the way it was, the way it should be, and the way it is. And along with that, he developed a life and a living that he perceived made him free. He was also a very gifted athlete, and at 6 feet 2 inches tall was a very good volleyball player. Played for the national team, got to tour all over the place, had a name for himself, had a reputation for himself, and like the athletes here in the States, the ladies were fond of him. And he chased the skirts. He really did. He also noted that all the other people that he knew that were even smarter than he was were atheists as well. And that just simply confirmed the fact that he was living his life right. But one summer, he and his brother traveled to the Caribbean just to be tourists. They were driving down the road one day and saw two pretty American ladies hitchhiking. They pulled over to pick them up. They were lost, didn't know the way back to their house. It happened to be right next to the place where they were staying, so they said, "Sheila, get into my car." And as they were very pretty ladies, they began to flirt. And the lady he had the highest shine for let it be known that she was a believer in Jesus Christ. And as he kept trying to push it toward his agenda, she told him, "I believe sexuality is meant to be celebrated within the confines of marriage." Which ruined his moment. But he was intrigued with her. And at the end of the vacation, he sought to keep in touch with her. And his big agenda was, I need to deconstruct her theism so that I can kind of move things in my direction. So he picked up the Bible with the intention of deconstructing her beliefs. And he became very impressed with the person of Jesus. He said, at first, I was impressed with his authority. And you heard these sermons about that lately? He was impressed with his authority. He was impressed by how quickly he thought all these Sadducees and Pharisees and scribes that were trying to pin him down and all these different, the way Jesus handled himself. He said, boy, he was no dummy. He said, I thought that if I was around Christians, I had to take my imagination and put it in one pocket and my brain in the other. But I realized Jesus was this brilliant man. Eventually, he decided to go to church. Walked in there like this, hoping no one would know him. He even said, I sat through a worship service, didn't hear a word the pastor said. And when the sermon was over, when the service was over, I went to leave, and he said, as soon as I got to the foundation of the church, to the front step, he said, something froze me. A cold blast of air hit me, and I had to turn around and go introduce myself to the pastor. He said, we talked for 3 hours afterwards. He said, my first question was to him, do you believe in God? And the pastor said, yes. By the way, congregation, do you believe in God?
Yes.
You can do it too. And they began to discuss, and they began to talk, and he began to read the scriptures in some different ways. And he said, one of the things that happened to me was that God began to activate my conscience. He said, during my atheism, that was on hold. It was dead. It was living for itself. But suddenly, I began to find myself under conviction, and I learned why Jesus had to go to the cross and die. He injured his shoulders playing volleyball, had nothing to do but study. He went back to America to find that sweetheart. After dating for a couple of months, they whistled it off. He said, well, maybe I'll go to seminary. And William Big Lone is now Dr. William Bignon, PhD, the Doctor of Philosophical Theology. Isn't that great? Now, that's a very complex story that I just told you. I want to tell you this. It was something simple. He realized he could invite Jesus into his boat. He had some caricature of an idea of what Jesus was. But when he learned to recognize his voice, he's like, I want this guy in my boat. And in bringing this in for a finish, why don't you let him into your boat? Why don't you let him into your boat? I wonder if you haven't done it before, if you're willing to take it a step further. Why don't you let him into your life? Why don't you let him into your heart? Jesus will walk across the water for you to do that for him. Jesus will walk across the water for your benefit. Because getting in your boat, in your life, in your heart, that's what makes all the difference. So I'll tell you what, our band's going to come forward. They're going to play the closing song. But the rest of you, know this. You might be saying, I want Jesus in my boat. I want Jesus in my life. I want Jesus in my heart. That happened to me when I prayed. It happened to Dr. Bignon when he prayed to the Lord. If you're real, show yourself to me. This altar here, you saw Tom and Noah Green praying in it just a minute ago. It's designed for prayer. If you'd like Jesus to get into your boat, if you'd like Jesus to get into your heart, you're going to have to take a step. It's not across water, it's against carpet. And it might seem like an even longer walk, but walk down here. I'll come meet you. I won't judge you. I won't make you feel uncomfortable. I'm just going to pray with you a certain way. Same way I prayed when I asked Jesus to get in my boat, in my life, in my heart. I look forward to meeting you when you come. Let's stand as we sing our closing worship song. The altar's open. Every blessing you'll pour out, I'll turn back in praise.